Hey, welcome back everybody. Last part of our sequence today. Actually, I'm going to add into this playlist a little standing sequence. Goes great with that last little bit of core work we did on the hands and the feet, or the four-pointed core activations. But what we'll do here is just a couple more back bends. I'm going to give two options in case you can't do the belly down stuff. Another option would be camel pose, which is just a nice way to open up. Hopefully my head doesn't pop off the top of the screen here. But essentially our camel pose, toes tucked or tops of the feet are down. I'm going to again think of grounding the root of the body. Base of the pelvis tucks down towards the earth. As the pelvis moves forward, my upper body starts to arc back. Hands supporting the lower back is a good place to start. Eventually, maybe a hand can find a heel, the other arm reaching up, so you're just doing one side, just to warm up into it. Okay, again, hands to the lower back, switch. If you have trouble reaching the heels, you might try that toes tucked variation, gives you just a little more height. Camel pose. Exhale to come back out slowly. A nice variation is called actually one of the Tibetan rites. I forget which number, I think number 2. No, we already did number 2. Number 3 maybe. Look it up. It's actually going from a very gentle camel position, and there's a number of different options with your arms. I just like the bull pose position, activating my upper back, my shoulders, and then from there coming up and rounding, maybe all the way down towards child's pose if you can find that, or just gently tucking, which is fine too. So you're inhaling to open and exhaling to bring it down. You might take a full breath out through the movement if you're going all the way. Inhale at the bottom. Exhale to rise back up. Inhale at the top. So there's a number of different ways that you can play around with that. About 5 to 10 is a good number if you're going for that. Otherwise, the static camel pose is a great one to do. Okay. We can do our belly down extensions, the locust pose. So hands reaching back, palms facing up. Again, we want to ground through the root. Belly pulls in, top of the spine lifts, my shoulders and arms lift as well. That's step 1. Okay, you're breathing steadily, keeping the belly engaged. The breath will fill more in the ribs, so you can maintain that. This might be a challenging pose at first. Okay, if you feel like you've got that, you can lift the feet. Usually I like to keep the legs together. Maybe interlace the fingers, squeeze shoulder blades, engaging upper back and lifting the arms as high as they go. You want to crunch the neck, reach through the back of the throat, extend through the crown. You'll find the pose much easier that way. Give it a few resting breaths. Bend the knees, reach for your feet for our full bow pose. Okay, again, you can take the half bow as well, just supporting yourself in Sphinx on one side, pushing one foot back and extending the other leg. Actually, I like to grab the inside of my ankles for a little more opening, as well as just a little bit more connection through my inner legs. So for the full bow, squeezing legs together, lifting up, staying grounded through the root. You can see as I push my pelvis down, it allows me to lift higher. Gently release. A good counter stretch for any back bends, just letting the knees, with the knees bent, letting your lower legs drop side to side, relaxing your upper body. Breathing. Okay, so those are a few back bends. Great for, again, late summer season. Really helps to energize, mobilize energy, especially with any abdominal stuff going on. It's going to help to kind of move that stuff. So really powerful practice. Okay, one other thing that I want to connect with today, arm balances and inversions. So for those of you that are familiar with inversions, feel free to join me with this today. Otherwise, maybe just an introduction. I'll give you a few modifications that you can work on to help get you there. So the first one we want to work on is our crow pose, Bakasana. I'm going to start in my yoga squat here. So knees are bent. You may find it's easier at first to have your feet much wider. Palms come to prayer position. You can also, if you need to, have a block underneath your hands to help support you if your hips can't get this low, right? For instance, maybe I'm just here, bring my forearms to my thighs. A couple of things we want to consider, using that lift internally. So I'm pressing my arms down against the thighs, lifting from the root, pelvic floor engages, extending through the top of the spine, guiding the energy up. The lower yoga squat, Malasana, squeeze the inner thighs. That'll again help to give you the lift of the root, arms pressed down, grounding through the upper body. That actually supports us as we internally lift through Ujjayi Bandha, extend through the back of soft palate. Again, we find a nice balance of energy here. You can hold these poses all day once you get that energy balance. So you should feel that. If you feel challenged, just notice where, continue to breathe. Maybe some shaking happens, that's okay. Okay, go ahead and relax that. Lift the hips, forward fold. Just gonna do a little adjustment of my camera here. Okay, so now hopefully I'm in frame. A great way to warm up for arm balances, we want to think of we're transferring the energy from our lower body to the upper body. So you want to practice that a few times. You're going to come into a forward fold, hands on the ground. If you need to, block is a great place to start, or even a chair, right? Because that'll help you to start to feel the shift of energy. So I'm going to ground my hands, knees are bent as much as needed to get you there. Okay, I'm beginning to move my center forward, heels will lift, and I'm pushing into the floor with my palms, extending forward through the top of the head. So my upper body essentially elongating, creating a nice pole. If you think of like a tightrope walker, they have that pole that they use to balance. That's what your spine is doing here when you do your arm balances. So come in and out of that a few times, lift, exhaling, release on the inhale. Let the heels ground, you might even lift the toes, just get a nice extra stretch there. Come forward, I'm pulling up from inside, starting to move the weight into my hands. You want to really concentrate that energy pushing back with your arm bones, reaching through the crown. Now for now, since we're not inverting, I want to again think of a lift through the upper body, almost like monkey pose or flat back. Okay? When you feel like you've got that down, come back to your yoga squat. We want to rest our hands underneath the shoulders, elbows are slightly bent, and then my shins come on top of the triceps. So this again lets gravity do most of the work. I'm going to find my inner thighs squeezing, so I'm using the root, lifting from base of pelvis, engaging there, projecting forward through the top of the spine as my belly button moves forward. My center of gravity goes over the hands and my feet just lift. Maintaining breath. Again, maybe you just float up for a couple of seconds and you plop back down. Right? A few things we don't want to do. Head dropping towards the floor, right? That again, where does gravity bring us naturally down? But we want to use our inner lift to help find lightness. So I'm projecting forward through the top of the spine, moving my belly forward. When I'm ready, my feet float up. So try that a few times. Again, if it's not working out for you or you feel like you're not there yet, practice the Malasana yoga squat. Okay. Give your hands a little breather. The inversion we're going to practice today is headstand. We have a modification of that, which is dolphin pose, also sometimes called Ardha Panchamayurasana, right? The half peacock feather. Really butchered the Sanskrit today. So I'm going to come onto my forearms, elbows underneath the shoulders. You can have your forearms parallel, or if your shoulders aren't quite open enough and it doesn't feel comfortable to do that, interlace the fingers. Tuck that pinky finger on the bottom under so that you're not squishing it when you put the weight into the backs of the hands, the pinky sides of the hands. And again, like downward dog, engaging my core, toes are tucked under, simply lifting the root of the body, reaching into the floor or the ground with my elbows, and my shoulders are not collapsing here or packing down, but moving towards the top of the head. So I'm using those muscles to create a lift. And that lift should actually come from here. So if that doesn't feel comfortable, again, just work gently into it. Focus on extending through the throat, through the top of the head. Okay, if that feels good, lift one leg up. Hold a few breaths. Switch sides. Gonna hold for a few breaths, reaching through that top heel, reaching through the bottom. Bring the lifted leg down, a couple of extra breaths there. Gently lower the knees and shake it out. Okay, so there's where you're going for a second round. If headstand is not something that you practice or are ready to practice, I definitely would say don't try a headstand if you've never done it before. YouTube is not the best place to explore new poses that you've never tried, especially ones as advanced as this. There are a few recommendations for people who are working on their headstand practice, and if you're not, what you can do is kind of use this as a warm-up, right? And anyone can do this pose. I'm going to turn to the side again. So, the half virasana is a good place to be. If you're open in the legs, you can also do high kneeling position. Okay? Just so I fit in frame, I'm going to come down here. Hands behind the head. I want to think of my elbows at about a 45-degree angle. So we're creating essentially an equilateral triangle with our forearms and the top of the head. Now again, sometimes you may hear in yoga to pack the shoulders down. When we invert, we actually don't want to do that. We want to think of the energy flowing through the shoulder joints, through the upper body. So I'm going to reach my elbows and forearms up. And you can see that that naturally gives me a little bit more space. It also helps me to align my neck, so it actually engages some of these muscles in the upper back. Okay, another important concept in our headstand, we're reaching up through the back of soft palate when we're upright. So when we're inverted, we want to think of reaching through that same space, okay, and extending the very top of the head. So find the top of your head, find the tops of your ears with your fingers, draw a line straight up where they connect. That's the crown point. Oftentimes people put weight too far forward, which is not good for the neck. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. We want to think of this point at the top of the head being, where we're at, okay? You can also practice that standing, right? Mountain pose with the hands behind the head. That's essentially your headstand upside down. So, make it your own. It's totally cool, however you choose to create that, okay? For the actual headstand, I'm gonna lower my elbows. Again, find that interlace of the hands. My fingers interlace, my palms are open. Lift into the dolphin. Now here I'm already supporting myself with my shoulder girdle, so there's no pressure on the neck, right, as you can find that. You're gonna start to walk the feet towards the arms. Bring the back of the skull into your hands so that that crown point is resting on the floor lightly. I'm still, all my weight's in my forearms, I can move my head around, okay? If you're too far forward, you can see what that does to my neck. As I start to come deeper, it's really crunching the back of the neck, so you don't want that. So feet continue to walk forward. Now again, I'm thinking of lifting my center, reaching through the elbows, and the weight comes out of my lower body into the upper body. Stacking knees. My legs are gonna go bye-bye. But again, find alignment here. See if you can use your core, press the ribs back a little bit as the knees tuck in. So I'm keeping my center of gravity over my forearms, so that the legs can come down with ease. When you get up, again, just some very slow, gentle movement through the head or neck. Sometimes this embryo position right here is a nice one, where a child's pose variation with your arms back by the hips. If you're practicing, it's good to give it 2 more rounds. If you feel like that was a lot for you, go to the dolphin pose 1 more time. That's where we can all start, and that's where you can stay. You've got the energy strong through the shoulder girdle as you start to come forward with the feet. The back of the skull finds the hands, crown of the head finds the earth. Push through the elbows, pull up and in from your center, and find the pose.